Very nicely done. Thank you, Professor Sperin. We listened to our faculty so far, and I am, as one example, learned a lot this morning and this afternoon, depends where you are. And I would like to invite my colleague Khalil to open the floor to questions. And I'm monitoring also the chat box on the social network that goes along with our presentation, and I would like to present the faculty with a few questions that arrived already. To begin with, Anne, this question will be for you, and just let me list the question and then I'll ask Anne to start answering. And there is a question about addressing the management of adverse event investigation and the collaboration of clinical engineering and nursing between them, how that relates to the HRO that you described in your presentation. So this will be for you, Anne. To Jennifer, the question came as, how did you manage in such a cold place to have a fantastic team build up? Can we learn something from the technology or methodology you used to create a team of partners like we talked about this morning? This will be for Jennifer. For Malcolm, the question came about, you presented such a nice model for UK. How can we, in your opinion, duplicate that to other parts of the world? And when I say duplicate that, the question was specifically the medical physicist and clinical engineering collaboration. So those are the questions I've received so far. Let's start with, and there is one about education, and I would ask Khalil to address that. Are we having sufficiently up-to-date education for clinical engineers around the world in understanding of what we're talking about here this morning? I'll come back to you, Anne, if you can start with the HRO situation.
Great, thank you so much. I'm not I unmuted myself, so hopefully you can hear me okay.
Yes.
So when we talk about an adverse event, whether it is related to a device or related to a medication error or related to something in an operating room suite that, you know, perhaps the wrong kidney was taken out, you can imagine that, you know, if your loved one had cancer in one kidney and they said, oops, you know, we took out the wrong kidney, this unfortunately happens. So in talking about the relationship with highly reliable organizations, the connection there is, in order for us to continue to have safer and safer hospital care, and as well as follow-up in primary care, we need to establish the principles of a highly reliable organization. And these relate to making sure that there is a standard process and that that process is followed. So for example, in the case of taking out the wrong kidney, did someone miss the step of dual patient identification? Did someone not do that last safety check with the surgeon in the operating room in terms of, yes, we are taking out the left kidney? So in terms of highly reliable organizations, you want to establish that the people making the decisions are the people closest to the work. So for example, if you're talking about a nursing process, you should have nursing at the table. If you're talking about a clinical function with any kind of equipment, partnering with respiratory therapy, for example. That was a wonderful presentation on everything from, the interface of ventilators, pumps, all of that relates to having a system of safety. So the construct of HROs, highly reliable organizations, really rely on making sure that you have a practice and a culture of safety so that all of your leaders and executives, instead of having it be blame if there's an issue, that everyone comes together and says, what do we need to do to all of our overall systems from the time something is ordered in the electronic health record to the time that you're doing that timeout in the surgical suite, that everything is done in a way that is based on safety. So highly reliable processes allow for those systems to be consistent, standardized, and evidence-based. So thank you for that question.
Thank you, Anne. Jennifer, if you still remember the question about what does it take to make such a team, please go ahead.
I do. Thank you very much for that question. And one of the things that I would like to say is that we're small. And the advantage of being small is that we tend to not have a lot of silos. And because of that, there's been a lot of really good collaboration across all of the disciplines within the healthcare system. So while today I spoke specifically about the collaboration between diagnostic imaging, lab services, and biomedical engineering, this is actually something that is not unique to those three groups. And certainly we have the same level of engagement with our nursing managers, with our respiratory therapists, with our pharmacy. And a lot of it has to do with the fact that we really all understand that the purpose of our work is for the patient. So because we have a common goal, we've really done a great job of making sure that we work together to achieve that goal, as opposed to, the lab just does what it wants to do, diagnostic imaging does what it wants to do. And we can really leverage those relationships to make sure that the experience is high quality, greatest safety, and certainly meets the needs of our clients. That's not to suggest that we get it right every single time, because as we all know, there's room for improvement in every aspect of what we do, whether it be management or the actual production of our services. But I think that to answer the question about what makes it successful is the open collaboration and the fact that we just don't approach our work from a siloed perspective. So it really is cultural.
Thank you, Jennifer. And for the faculty, please look at the question and answer as they are popping up on the Q&A area. We're going to have about 5 more minutes before we turn off this broadcast. And next we'll go to Professor Sperrin, please.
So this was a question about
how can we duplicate what you have done so well in the UK, London area to other parts of the world?
I think it's not necessarily that we produce anything that is fantastically different from anyone else. We've just organized it in a way that works. And I think if anybody wanted to take the model that we use here and use that to develop your own service, then that's fine. We'd be more than happy to help out with that. One of the key things, and we've just heard Jennifer say about this, is collaboration is absolutely key. Without the collaboration, we will have just a multitude of very, very small facilities, and that really doesn't serve any purpose. But I think if anybody was interested, we would be more than happy to describe what the department looks like. I mean, it's very complex. It's more complex than I've just described in 10 minutes. But I'm more than happy to hand over what that looks like and how we justify it, and with the business cases and where the benefit arises. And maybe there you know, there's some more. It is inspiration and to talk and explain. And I'm more than happy to help out anybody who might have an idea about how they would like to take that model on board. But collaboration is everything, because some of these techniques are so niche, they're very small, there's low numbers of patients. So you would find it in some cases difficult to justify the investment, in which case we may be able to help with that, you know, on a per patient basis. There's all sorts of possibilities, but talking is the first step. Does that help?
Very helpful, especially the open invitation for the audience to contact you and find more details. I really appreciate that.
Of course.
Let's jump to my colleague Khalil, and the question was, are we educating, in light of what we heard this morning, sufficiently well the next generation of clinical engineers?
Is that?
That's for Khalil.
Ah, okay, sorry.
You're muted, Khalil.
Yes, I was waiting for you. Yes, doctor. I know a bit about the English system, the UK system, and I think they are very, very interesting, but again, expensive to be applied to smaller countries or poor countries. But anyway, when you talk about education, you spoke about a lot about capacity building. And my question was, how active is IFM? And I know they are the organization that I'm not sure what the word you use, certify or something like authorize the training groups to have a training for clinical engineers and medical physics. I mean, how active they are to update the knowledge for those new technologies that are coming in the world, anyway, in the medical system.
Okay, that's a great question. So we can do this, or we do this a number of ways. So IPEM is active and they have their special interest groups. But IPEM is only one organisation amongst a number who have an interest to make sure that clinical engineers are first of all competent, which of course they will be, but also to make sure that their knowledge is kept up to date and is continuously challenged. So what we call continuing professional development. And we have systems which rely on the remote delivery of that knowledge. And then we can work with partners who would be embedded within a host hospital. So this again is one of support, and that does work quite well. So you don't have to send somebody to a specific location for 3 months, 2 months or whatever to learn those skills. You can actually learn them remotely. And then the secret is to make some way of actually assessing that individual to make sure that their skills are as good as they should be. And with that, again, can be done in a number of ways. But for one person to be sent out from the UK to provide the assessment for a large number of people is actually quite an effective way of working. But it's the answer to, like most of these things, it depends upon the detail. But IPEM is certainly very active in this area. And if you need to be put in touch with people, it's my pleasure to help.
Oh, I will. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Yeah, Dean, I believe you have one more. I don't know if you have time. Tom is the guy who ordered us to finish. But anyway, there's a question. I don't know. It's called Nokia. Maybe it's the cell phone. But how can they change the idea from Arabic countries to? I mean, here he's saying that biomedical engineers and technicians are in charge of everything, which is plumbing, machinery, cars, ambulances, and mechanics. I mean, how do you suggest they should change that? What the strategy they should use? Do you have an answer for that?
Of course, there's the answer to that. It's a known phenomena for every starting professional field. And the way to do it is just like what we talked about throughout. And Jennifer, Rhonda, and Alexandre, we all talk about education. We all talk about training and credentialing. And to differentiate biomedical engineers and clinical engineers, from others working in the field, you have to bring up your credentialing, especially professional training, and demonstrate that you have something to offer. With that, I would like to bring the seminar, this webinar, to a conclusion. I would like to sincerely thank each and every one on the faculty. You were giving a great information, and I'm sure there are going to be a lot of follow-up. Khalil, pleasure to co-moderate that with you. Tom,
My pleasure also.
you had a great year in organizing this series of webinar, and it's back to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you all.
Thank you, everybody.
Well, happy holidays and happy end of year to everybody. Thanks and bye for now.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you all. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.